those of you who don't know me, my name is Marianne, and today I would like to talk about my life as a diabetic. So here's part of my history. I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes a million years ago. And at that time, I was prescribed every single oral medication in the book, and I tried them all. I tried metformin, I tried, I don't even remember half of the stuff that I had to take, and none of them seemed to work. And a lot of them, I had side effects, and they weren't making me feel good. Like, for example, for metformin, I was getting sick when I eat too much. I was just getting sick, period. So I was nauseous like half the time. And so after a while, that led to me eventually not taking it as much as I should. The doctor explained the normal progression of the disease and, getting older. My diabetes was getting out of control. So it took a very long time of not really controlling it, not really trying to control it, and not having transferred to different doctors and so on and so forth, that I finally 2 years ago had a wake-up call. And that wake-up call is called Diabetic Ketoacidosis. I teach Zumba, as I was teaching that day, and I started feeling unwell in the middle of the class. And I was feeling nauseous. I kept right on and taught the class for an hour, and it just wasn't the same. I was really feeling weak, and I didn't have the energy, and I just basically tried to finish it. Right after the class, I had to go and throw up, basically. And people told me afterwards that I actually did not look well at all. I looked pale, and I looked sick. I was so sick that I had to sit in the dressing room for like a good half an hour. And then I had to give myself the energy to go to my car in the parking lot. And I had to sit there for like another half an hour before I could actually will myself to drive home. I got home, I slept for the rest of the day, and I thought I was fine. But then towards the evening and then the morning after, I noticed that I was really short of breath. And the morning after, actually planning to go to work, and I found that I could not even walk a couple of steps without being really out of breath, and it was just hard to do anything physical. So I had someone take me to acute care, and they did a blood test on me. Obviously, being a diabetic, that would be the first thing that they do, is take your history and then take your blood sugar. And mine came up to 22. So in all these years that I've been diagnosed with diabetes, I actually have not been good at keeping track of my blood sugar and even measuring my blood sugar. You're supposed to measure it at least once a day, at the very least. So I don't know how long I've had it at 22 or in the 20s or anything higher really than 7. So they took me in right away, and they were quite alarmed. And at my stay at that acute care center, I said that they were going to actually transfer me to a hospital, and they were going to admit me. And I had 4 doctors watching over me the whole time I was there and while I was at the hospital, because I was in danger of having a stroke, going into a diabetic coma, having a heart attack at any given time. So they were actually watching over me. I had machines all over me. I had tubes all over me, and they kept taking blood tests every about half hour. So they finally transferred me to the hospital, where I was admitted for a week, and that's when they put me on permanent insulin use. Speaking of insulin, so I had type 2 diabetes. They decided that I was actually a type 1 diabetic and put me on insulin. And I think that being put on insulin is probably the best thing that they could have done for me, because it became a lot more controlled. And of course, I still have to worry about my diet and about my exercise, and helps me to control it a lot better. And it helps me control it better. I'm going to go over basically my daily routine in terms of my medications and sugar measurements throughout the day. And I wanted to give you an idea of what it's like to be using Freestyle Libre. So Freestyle Libre just came out probably several years ago, and it's basically a constant glucose monitoring system. Now, for those of you who are diabetics, you're probably used to having this, and you probably know exactly what this is. So this is a manual monitoring blood glucose system where you basically have to prick your finger every time. You will put a little drop of blood on the glucose strip. You put it into a little machine and it gives you your blood glucose reading. The problem is, if you're like me and you're having a hard time controlling your diabetes, as I was before, you would have to basically prick yourself before and after every meal, as I was told by my doctors. So that would be, if you're eating 3 meals a day, that would be twice for breakfast, twice for lunch, twice for dinner, and maybe even once before bedtime. That's a lot of pricking. That's a lot of blood. That's a lot of pain. My fingers were all going numb and blue, and they were hurting. It's needles you're talking about, no matter how small they are. So my doctor actually recommended Freestyle Libre. So Freestyle Libre is basically something that you put on your arm, and it looks like this. Basically have a sensor, up your sensor into this reading system, and it gives you a reading. So for example, right now, mine says 5.9. All good, right? Getting this box, so you would have to buy a sensor, which is sold separately. And most insurance companies now cover this, I believe. When I had to buy mine, I had to get special permission from my insurance company to make sure that they covered it, because it is quite costly. It's about 100 Canadian dollars every time you buy a sensor, and you have to buy it every 2 weeks because it needs to be replaced every 2 weeks. So that's basically $100 every 2 weeks. My insurance covers it, so thankfully I don't have to worry about that. So anyways, in a box of sensor, comes with 2 alcohol swabs, this little oval disc thing, and I'll show you what's inside. Comes with another oval disc thing, and this is basically where the needle is, and I will show you how to put it together. And of course, you have your instructions. So when you open it, so the first thing that you would do is just open this. And so this little thing you have to turn forcefully, and that shows you where the needle is. The needle is actually in there, in the middle of the blue thing here. So what you have to do is you have to take the gap here, where you see the gap, and you have to line it up where it has the line right here. So you have to line them up. You smack it, and you make sure that it actually goes down in full. So what that does is it actually embeds the needle into your case. So now you see a needle. I don't even know if you could see a needle in there, but it's in there. It's a little one. So now you're all set to go. So now if you have an old one, so basically they probably tell you to move it, you know, once in a while so you don't get bruising. And so I like this arm better to put it on, because especially when I was teaching at the gym and I would be sweating, for some reason this arm, it would come out a lot more easily than this arm, and I'm not really sure why. So I prefer this arm, so I tend to use this arm a lot more. I do move it within this arm, and I do move it from arm to arm sometimes, so every 2 weeks. In order to take it off, in order to replace it, I just kind of peel it off, and you can see that the needle is still there. So what I do is I just wipe that down with one of the alcohol swabs. What you do is you just put this against your skin. Now, normally put it here or here. You can put it up here if you wanted, but it just doesn't read as easily, I find. So I'm not sure if I'm being accurate, or if maybe that's just me. So you just put it aligned with your skin, and then you slam it. And then you take it off and you find that, voila, you have another one. And you find that this is all sunken in, so you know that the needle has gone through. Pain, it doesn't hurt. However, the time that you would feel the needle is if for some reason it's coming out because you're sweating too much, for whatever reason, or you knock it off. Sometimes the needle gets bent, and so you do feel that. When it's ready to come off, you do feel that. So you do feel a little bit of pain, but really it's nothing. All right, so that one's done for that. Easy breezy, right? Put this on for the first time. You have to turn on your sensor, and you hear the 3 beeps. So basically what that's telling me is that a new sensor has been found, and would you like to start it now? So you go yes, and you scan it again, and what it tells you is this will start working in 60 minutes. So from the time that you scan it for the first time, it takes 60 minutes for it to get a reading. So you have to wait till then. I don't take any oral medication. So being on insulin, you normally don't have to take any oral medication for your diabetes. And so what I have are 2 kinds of insulin. So I have a Humalog, which is my short-acting insulin. And then I have Tresiba, which is my long-acting insulin. So the Tresiba one is the one that I take every night before I go to sleep. It's a long-acting one, and it's a slow-acting one. So it's supposed to work throughout the day. So that's why I put it on during the night. So then it lasts throughout the night and then the whole day. Basically what this is it has a small needle on top, and you can see the graduations on there. So right now I take 12 units every day. So I take 12 units a night. So you would just click this to 12, and then you push this, and voila, there it goes. So normally where I do it is my stomach. So what I do is the right side of my stomach is reserved for my Tresiba, and the left side of my stomach is for my Humalog. Now Humalog is my short-term acting insulin. So I normally do my Humalog shots once before every meal. Now, the only exception to that is if, for example, I'm doing a lot of physical activity. So in that case, I would not feel the need to do an insulin shot. And that's why this one is so helpful, because you can just scan at any time and get a reading of your blood glucose at any time without having to prick your finger. So Humalog is the same as the Tresiba. It also has a needle, and it comes in a replaceable cartridge. Tresiba one is not. So when this one is done, I have to throw the whole thing away. So with this one, I get them in these cartridge packages, and I basically have to replace it every time it's gone. So I'm going to show you how to replace it. You've turned it from the case, from the pen, so it just comes off. You have to take out the needle, obviously. Be very careful. The needles actually kind of hurt when they prick you. And so the cartridge exits out of the little cylindrical tube. So this one just gets thrown away. So you open the new one. You put it in, and you put it in here, you twist it, and there you go. So you can also see the graduated cylinders on here that show you the amount, as well as here where you turn. So I do 14 units 3 times a day. And again, that's depending on what my blood sugar is. I can go lower if my blood sugar is low. It's just me who controls it. The 14 units was just recommended at first by my doctor, and that just really depends again on my level of exercise. So in order to put the needle in, I have needles, and the needles come in different sizes. So it really just depends on, they have thicker ones, they have longer ones. It just depends on what you're comfortable with. I have the 5 millimeter. So you unpeel it, you twist it on here, and there is a little protective cap on top, and there you go. So that's that. So again, as I said, the left side of my stomach is reserved for my Humalog. I'm supposed to be replacing the needle every day. I don't, especially for my Tresiba one, which I use only once a day. Usually replace it every couple of days or so. Otherwise, the needle gets dull, and then it hurts when you give yourself a shot. And there goes my insulin. So it has a cover, and it's portable. You can take it anywhere. It's so easy to take it. And that is it. So every day I have to do this. Again, it's made it really easy for me to control my diabetes. Also encourages you to eat better, because you can see the result on here, and you can see it as many times as you want. I still eat desserts, I still eat sweet things, but it's definitely not as much as before. And also I know kind of how to handle it. I definitely eat less carbs. I don't really eat bread. I barely eat rice. I do, it's normally not white rice. So there's a lot of dietary changes that you can make in order to control your diabetes better. I'm not going to get into that because I don't want this video to be about diet and your exercise, but just to end it, just to say that with your diet, you need to have a better diet, period. And with your exercise, you need to exercise, period. Just try to have as much of an active lifestyle as I can. So I do teach Zumba, and even when I don't teach, I take classes. I've been doing Zumba classes at home. I normally take walks, or I would go hiking. I'm also big into paddle boarding. So it's just doing something all the time, and that helps your blood sugar a lot. That's all I have to do to control my diabetes, and it's gotten a lot easier. And Freestyle Libre has definitely helped that, because I think that having to prick my finger 7, 8, 10 times a day would really prevent me from doing it on a regular basis, because it would start hurting so much. So if you guys have any questions, or if you're doing a Freestyle Libre as well, or if you were just diagnosed with diabetes, or if you've just started taking insulin shots, feel free to comment down below. And if you like this video, feel free to hit like, share, and subscribe.